You can see behind me I got my sink going. I've got my water turned up as hot as it'll go, and I'm just going to put my malt extract in the bucket into that sink, into the hot water. You saw when I was showing you the malt extract earlier that it's real thick, it's like syrup. So whenever you go to dump it in there, you want every bit of that malt extract out of there you can get. The more you get, the more flavor, the more alcohol, the more fermentables you have. So basically you put it in a hot sink of water in this plastic bucket, and it's going to heat that malt extract up slowly, and it's going to make it where it's a lot easier to release from that bucket. I've been steeping it every several minutes, like I said. Pull it out, and there goes the timer. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and leave this in here for just a second. I'm going to go ahead and fire up the burner again, and we'll get the water starting to heat up. As soon as I get it going, and the temperature probe that keeps the burner going is that temperature, and it'll stay lit by itself, I'll pull this grain bag out, and we'll start letting it drain while the rest of it heats up. That kind of gives you, it'll give you a small clue of what color your beer is going to be when it comes out. Got done with the specialty grains, 25 minutes at 155 degrees. This was my nylon bag. I pulled it out. I used it for my grain. The good thing about these, like I said, most of the kits you get come with muslin bags. But the good thing about these is they're really easy to clean out. Nothing sticks to them, nothing gets caught because the mesh is so fine. So they're really easy to rinse out. And of course, like I said before, we're going to use this for our hops. I've already got my hops, they're all pre-measured. I've got them outside. They're just waiting for this bag. So I'll go ahead and put those in a bag, and when we get outside. And still got my malt extract here in the hot water. It's still pretty hot, so it should be loosened up, more viscous, I guess you'd say. So it'll be ready to go. And I'm going to explain something real quick about one of the things that'll help clarify your beer. There's what's called the hot and the cold break. The hot break occurs at the very first of your boil. What you want to do is, the process we're doing right now, like I said, we're heating it up to a boil. The water's going to, as soon as it boils, we can go ahead and, what we'll do is we'll take it off the heat, and then we'll add the malt extract. The reason you do that is because the malt extract's heavier than the water. The malt extract will settle down to the bottom of your brew kettle, and it'll burn if you still have it on heat. So we're going to take it off of there, and so we're going to take it off of there, mix our malt extract in, stir it up with my food grade ladle / spoon that we have out there, and make sure it's thoroughly mixed. And then once we do that, we'll put it back on the heat. When we put it back on the heat, we want it to reach boil again. And if you kind of watch, I'll try to show it a little bit when it's getting close to the boil. This foam's going to form on top of the wort, and when it gets close to that, you'll start seeing these. They'll be like little white flakes. They'll just start flying through your wort in there, and it's kind of neat to watch. But that's called the hot break. And basically what that is, it's the protein separating from the sugars. And really, the faster you can do that, the better. Because that's going to, like I said, it'll result in clearer beer. And I guess that's basically about it. The cold break is the exact opposite of that. It's when you cool it down as fast as you can. And I'll show that later. I have a device that a lot of people use that facilitates a faster cool down. You want to get it as cooled down as fast as possible. So, and that's what's called the cold break. And that'll also help when you're wanting clearer beer. So anyway, our water's heating up. We're getting ready to add our malt extract. So that'll be the next step in the beer making process. Okay, so we removed it from heat. It was boiling. We've got our malt extract here. You can see, you know, it's fairly viscous. It's gotten a lot less thick since we started here. So I'm going to try to do this. Ideally, you'll want to, if you're not running a camera, you'll want to stir it while you're mixing this in. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting this whirlpooling. So it'll be kind of spinning around while I'm doing this. To get all this out of there as, you know, as much as possible. And one thing I like to do is wash the bucket real good with water, preferably not soap. Just make sure it's really clean, because you want to get all that out of there that you can. And it's just about all drained out. But I'll show you here in just a second, when it's about done dripping here. You can see in this bucket there's still quite a bit left in there. Well, you want all that that you can. So what I'm going to do is, you can take a cup and get some of the hot wort. Be real careful, because obviously it's boiling. But you can take hot wort, pour it in there, stir it around. What I do is make sure the bucket's real nice and clean, and then I'll dip it down in here very carefully and fill it up with the wort. You can probably see that. And then just stir it up. That the boiling liquid in there, of course it's not boiling now, but it's still pretty hot. But I'll stir that up and get all that malt extract I can, because it's expensive. And of course, the more you get in there, the more alcohol your yeast are gonna produce. So we'll get all that we can. So I've stirred that up a little bit. Be real careful, because this is gonna be hot. Dump it back in there. You can see I got most of it. I'm gonna do one more time and just kind of, I don't know if you'd really want to slosh it around, but you'll want to get that mixture in there and stir it up, so all that's left in that bucket will dissolve. There's still a little bit left on the sides there. You can work it, get most of it out of there. But these buckets are great for anything else afterwards. You can store stuff in, whatever. So you can see that bucket's pretty clean. We got pretty much all that malt extract we can out of there. This bucket, if you do that, this bucket's going to be extremely sticky. So don't sit it on anything that you don't want to get sticky. So now we're going to take this and put it back on the heat. Yeah, I'm starting to do it right now. Let me see if I can show you. So you can see those proteins, they're starting to separate out. That right there is a really good example of your hot break. Now this is one of the most important parts when you're making your beer. You got to really watch this. When it gets to the hot break point and then it starts boiling, like I said, there's going to be lots of foam. Well, all the recipes you'll read, they'll have a hop schedule. Of course, I have my 3 ounces of Simcoe hops here as the recipe called for. When you look at the recipe, what you're going to see is that they'll usually be like, it'll say 3 ounces Simcoe hops, 60 minutes. Well, this recipe is a little bit different. It calls for a 70-minute boil, which I've never done. I've done a 90-minute, but never a 70-minute. I'm not real sure of the purpose of that, but we're going to go ahead and follow the recipe because that's what it says. But basically, when you follow the recipe, what it says to do, this is going to be, it calls for 60, it says 60 minutes of Simcoe. What that is, the very first hops you put in are going to be your bittering hops. The longer these hops stay in contact with the wort, the more bitterness you can extract from the hop oils. So that's what your bittering hops are going to be. Those are going to be the ones you put in first. The next hops you put in are going to be aroma and flavor hops. That'll come later in the boil, and I'll kind of explain that when we get to that point. But you want to make sure you have your timer. I don't have mine set yet. It's not boiling, but you want to start that timer when it says to start it. That way you can get an accurate gauge, because if you don't, you aren't going to get the desired flavor according to the recipe. So I'm going to go ahead and set that, and then I'll try to kind of show you. I don't know how good you'll be able to see when the hops go in there, but it's the first, I'd say, 5 to 10 minutes of your boil. That's going to be, I wouldn't say the most dangerous time, but the most important time, because you have to watch for boilovers. If you get a boilover, it's super messy. It'll boil out over the top. I don't have to worry about that as much, because I'm using a 15-gallon brew kettle here, and there's only 5 gallons in there. So chances are it's not going to get all the way up to the top. But if you're using a smaller kettle, generally what you have to do is kind of feather, I call it feathering the throttle on the propane. You'll have to kind of adjust it and watch it real close. You can kill the foam with a spray bottle with water, or you can use a spoon to stir it back in, just like if you're making pasta. Before, we've got our boil going, and you can see how much this is expanded. If you can imagine doing a boil, a homebrew boil in a smaller container, this, you know, like I said, this is expanded about 2.5 to 3 times with foam the way it was. Normally, if you're using a smaller vessel of some sort, you'd have to stir this. I'll go ahead and stir it and show you. I got my spoon here. You can kind of take it, stir it down, you can blow, you can add water from a spray bottle, just kind of spray it down, blow on it, whatever, just like you would do if you're making pasta. But you can see it'll kill that foam down, and it'll also fog up your camera lens. But basically you want to keep that under control. We've got probably, let's see, we've got about 4 minutes left till we add our hops. That's really when you want to watch it, because like I said, it'll foam up a whole lot when you first put your hops in. You see, I got my hop bag, it's floating. You can kind of already see that it's expanding greatly. You can kind of see some of the foam starting there, but it's really not bad. It should be good. So basically, from this point forward, you just kind of got to watch it. I'm going to turn the heat up just a little bit. But basically, you just kind of got to watch it there for about an hour, or however long your boil is. Like I said, this one's 70 minutes. Most are 60. So just kind of keep an eye on it, and just kick back, drink you a beer or two while you're brewing, and wait for the next hop edition.